In the next edition of It's About Money, my guest will be David Brault. He's the owner of Lake to Lake Produce, and I think you'll be excited to hear about this business venture. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nanette Nocon and thank you for joining us. My guest is David Brault. Dave Brault, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about your business model, especially all the problems in California. So describe your business to our viewers.
Okay, so my business is agriculture. So I have a couple greenhouses and I focus on producing vegetables in those greenhouses. They let me have an extended season and produce things out of season. I focus a lot on tomatoes, unique varieties, some heirlooms and some hybrids. I use hydroponics to produce crops also, some lettuces and some herbs. We're located in the Finger Lakes in New York. We serve customers in that area, and in Western New York, we're close to Rochester and Syracuse. We were founded just this year in 2015, so this is our first year, and yeah, so we're excited to get started. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but it's been great.
That's great. I think what the neat part about it is traditional farming is limited because it's where we live.
Right.
But the way you set up your business, it's all year round.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, with the covering, we still have to deal a little bit with the weather. The weather here is so different every season, even every week or every day it can be totally different. So we still have to contend a little bit and change what we do and, add some heat and add, control the environment. But the greenhouse definitely gives us a huge advantage over outdoor farming.
So greenhouse, most of the time, my traditional notion of greenhouse is glass greenhouse. Is that the only way to have greenhouse?
No, so there are several different coverings for greenhouses. Mine is covered with a couple layers of plastic. It's a heavy plastic, and there's 2 layers, and then they're separated with a cushion of air inside about 6 inches, and that provides great insulation. So glass is great. It has great light transmission, but no insulation. There are other coverings, other hard plastics that have good advantages. It's all trade-off. It's a balance of insulation and light transmission.
Got it.
So
So in order for the year-round, that light transmission, as long as there's some light to it, or do you put artificial lighting?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't use artificial lighting.
Okay.
You can, but the light transmission on the plastic is still very good. It's not as good as glass, but
I see.
It's a good balance between light transmission and insulation.
So when you got started, how did you do it all? There's so much to think about. You just talked about a bunch of different challenges: the heat, the light.
Yeah, there's a ton. There's a lot of aspects. There's building the structures and managing the structures. There's raising the crops and making sure all that goes. And then there's bringing everything to market and then keeping track of the business. So there are many components, and it was a lot of time spent planning and thinking about it.
Did you choose the location first before you chose the structure? What went first?
Yeah, the location was first. Okay. So that was tricky. There's a few things that we need to have to have a location that's proper. So it needs to be properly zoned. You have to be allowed to put up greenhouses and have a farm. You have to have good access to markets. It can't be in the middle of nowhere. You can't have to drive half a day to get to market. Right. You need a really good water supply also. So whether it's well water, we were lucky enough to get on municipal water where we are. You need a good, steady, clean water supply. So, and then we also needed a house because we wanted to live on the land. So all of those things, I needed things for the farm, I needed things for the house. We're working with a budget, so it was tricky. It was exciting. It was a little stressful. You have to kind of act really quickly, and this is our first house, so yeah. But that was the first step, and then from there, I was able to decide what the land was going to look like and where the structures were going to go.
So did you help raise the structure as well?
Oh yeah.
Or hire
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So that was a lot of work. We started in March when it was cold.
As the snow.
Yeah, it was snowing. It was raining. It was muddy. The mud was it was thick. It was heavy. It really slowed us down a little bit. But yeah, the structures, they're relatively simple. It's sort of a kit. You kind of just repeat the same steps, and the instructions are pretty good. So it took some ability. It took a lot. It was a lot of work. But in order to save some money on the setup of the business, did most of it myself with the help of some family and friends. I'd be remiss to not specifically mention my grandpa Al, who, even though he's 50 years my senior, was incredibly enthusiastic and capable, and was a big help, and was coming out just about every day while we were building those greenhouses.
Oh, wow. And was he in the farming business? Or
No, no.
he's just
no.
interested in helping you out.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's really handy and really positive, and was a huge asset.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
That's always helpful because, you know,
Yeah.
they care about you and they want to have you successful and happy.
Yeah, and I mean, it was tough. Early going, it was really muddy, and I learned. So we have 2 greenhouses, and I learned a lot doing the first one, but I learned the hard way in a few instances. So
Now,
it wasn't always easy.
What makes it like 2? Is it because of what's raised in each of the greenhouses, or you just said, well, I'll start with this one and then build? Help me.
Yeah, so I chose. So there are 2. They're both the same size. They're 30 feet wide and 96 feet long. They're different heights though, and I did that because of the different crops that are growing. So in the shorter one, which is about 12 feet high, I have lower growing crops, the lettuces, the herbs. And then in the taller one, which is about 17 feet high, I have the tomatoes, which are trellised up about 11 feet. So I needed the extra space there.
Okay.
So yeah, same footprint, but a little different style.
So tell me about hydroponics. So you're raising mostly hydroponic plants, or they're different? In a way, not hydroponic plants, but hydroponically grown.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I use
Say that
hydroponics for most of what I do right now. So hydroponics is a method of growing plants without soil. And commonly you just primarily uses water as the delivery media for the fertilizer and the oxygen.
Okay.
So there's a couple different styles, different systems, some that look like big floating ponds, which is a system that I use, some that look like kind of like gutter troughs, and the roots kind of lay, and then a flow of water that carries the fertilizer, passes over the roots. Sometimes the roots are suspended in air and kind of a mist of fertilizer is blown at them. No matter how they're grown, plants still need light, they need air, they need water, they need a physical support, something for the roots to anchor into, and they need fertilizer, they need nutrients to produce a good crop. So hydroponics is able to meet those needs very accurately. You can fine-tune things, you can make changes pretty quickly to the level of fertilizer, the temperature of things, and make sure that everything is available to the plants all the time. The result of all that effort is the plants grow quicker, they take up less space, they use less water, and the other advantage of hydroponics is that a lot of times you can sell the plant with the roots still intact. So the plant is alive until you make it into salad, so it takes freshness to another level, and improves shelf life.
So when you say grow faster, it literally
Yeah,
grows
yeah.
faster?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep, the plants take less time to be produced in a hydroponic system than a conventional system in soil farming.
You know, what was interesting to me is that it takes up less water. So you look at California, where I guess we get, 50% of our food supply in the United States, or vegetables and fruits, and I think to myself, wow, they're running out of water. Here's an alternative way to provide food supply to the country. Why not have the kind of method that you use,
Absolutely, and I think people are starting to really be aware of water concerns in our country, especially, this drought is making it very evident. And I think that hydroponics is a good answer for situations like that. It does use much less water, up to 70% less versus just regular.
70%,
Yep.
that's amazing.
Yep.
And then if you think about it, the transportation costs are less because you're delivering it to shorter distances, so you don't have all that energy that you give up across the country.
Right, so you're using less resources and producing high quality crops that have been tested and shown to have, proven to have equal or sometimes better nutritional value, so you're getting good quality, healthy stuff that you can produce locally using fewer resources.
Oh, that's great. So now there's been this trend that people want to buy locally. You think that influenced the way you're able to sell your the crops that you raise?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you sell the crops right now? Are they directly to consumers, or do they go to a grocery store? Or help me understand how it comes from the greenhouse to the end customer.
Right. So after I harvest, I distribute through 2 main channels right now. One is a wholesaler, so I deliver to him, and then from there, he sells to restaurants or grocery stores, so my stuff gets in that way. And then my other avenue is farmers market, which is me harvesting and bringing stuff and selling direct to the consumer, direct to the end user. So those are the 2 that I'm using right now. And
so that's interesting, because aren't most farmers markets like in the warmer weather? But you could
Most
do this.
are.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah, most are. Some of the bigger ones, Public Market in Rochester, Public Market in Syracuse, those go year-round. Most farmers don't attend year-round because they don't have crops year-round, but if it's there, people are so excited about local food that if you can get it there, they're very happy.
Sure, sure. Yeah, because you're going to want it fresh. It's you know, it's locally grown. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
So that's a solution. Because
People are choosing locally grown. You know, they're making a conscious choice to spend their money. Even if they're spending a little bit more, they're deciding that it's a good investment. It's a good choice to buy local.
And do you also use less pesticides? Does it require less pesticides?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the water, you avoid soil-borne diseases. There can be pest and disease problems that are persistent in soil. And those can be mitigated through crop rotation, sometimes through the use of chemicals if farmers choose to do that. But because we don't have the soil, we don't have some of those diseases. And also because we're covered, we have fewer pests coming in to begin with. So we don't have as many bugs. And then we also use integrated pest management, which is an intelligent approach to managing pests using like a good bug to eat a bad bug. So we bring in a lot of ladybugs.
Oh, okay.
You know, who are great for controlling aphids or other pests
Is that
instead of
right?
using chemicals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. So ladybugs have a good purpose like that.
Yeah,
'Cause
no,
they're
ladybugs.
cute, you know.
Yeah, no, they're excellent, and they work hard all the time, and they just eat.
And they don't damage the plants.
No, they don't damage the crops at all.
Oh, okay.
They don't damage the crops. Yeah, but there are several types of insects that you can use that are beneficial. That don't damage the crops, do nothing to human health, and then take care of the pest problem without any chemicals.
So it's kind of weird question. You like shake the plant and leave the ladybug in.
So ladybugs, when you buy them, they come by volume. So instead of like a number of ladybugs, you can get like a cup or a half gallon or a gallon of ladybugs.
Oh my gosh.
So you get this box, they ship them overnight, and you get this box of ladybugs, and then you kind of sprinkle them out, and then they, they kind of search for food.
Doing their thing, yeah.
Yeah, they go to work.
And they
It's
probably
great.
just all spread out. Oh, too many here. I'm going to go over there.
You're right, yeah, they spread out, and they cover all the surfaces of the plants. They do.
But they have a certain life expectancy, right? So
Yep.
they're okay.
Yeah, they don't live forever, so you bring them back. Also, if there's no food, if they eliminate all the
Oh, yeah.
pests, then they fly away. So they'll
They
find
keep
ways out
working.
of the greenhouse, and they'll go eat somewhere else.
Oh, they'll serve some other farmer. That's traditional. Yes, so that's great.
Yeah.
So in terms of overhead, obviously there's the startup cost of building the greenhouse and the structure within the greenhouse. What are your ongoing expenses? I mean, there's water because it's hydroponic,
Right, yep.
and the ladybugs and
Right.
some other. What other things do you have to think about? Is energy like electricity a big part
Yeah.
of what you do? Okay.
Electricity is a pretty big component, and then also energy for heating.
Okay.
The heat source is really important. But ongoing costs for every crop cycle, every time I plant, then there's seeds, there's the media, there's the fertilizer. So those costs come up, cyclically. But yeah, energy costs are a big one. So the better you can do there, the better off you'll be.
So in terms of energy, the temperature of the water obviously has to be right. So do you warm up the water, or is it warm around the water? That sounds, around the room, or does it warm up the water? How does that go?
You heat the water.
Okay, all right.
So the water does absorb some heat from the air,
Oh, yes, okay.
but it also holds it really well. So it stays, it's kind of a buffer, that volume of water. So the temperature stays. But yeah, if you need to heat or cool the water, because you don't want it too hot, you don't want it too cold either, then you use a chiller or a heater to influence the temperature of the water directly.
I got it. So do you have to worry about insulation of where the pods are or the containers for the water, or just kind of constant review of what the temperature is?
The frame of the water is pretty thick wood, so that offers good insulation. Some people use foam insulation.
I see. Okay.
So depending on, if you're in a really hot climate, then that's more important. Here it hasn't been a big issue. The temperature has been actually very favorable, so I haven't had to do a lot with that.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
Now, how did you learn all about this? I mean, you weren't raised by farmers.
No, no.
So how did you decide to be a farmer?
Well, really early on when I was a little kid, my grandparents had a farm, so I remember they didn't have a farm. They owned a property that had a little garden and a couple barns. So it used to be a farm, but they weren't farmers either. So I remember working in the garden and seeing the barns and the tractors. And in hindsight, it seems like a pretty formative experience because it shaped who I am now. But I always loved nature and being outside and working with my hands. And I love to cook. And those all came together pretty well in my career now. But I built my first hydroponic system in 10th grade as a science experiment.
I see, I see.
So before I knew that I would be doing it as a career. In college, I studied plant and soil science at the University of Vermont. I worked at several different farms there, in college and after, gaining experience and sort of refining my interests and learning along the way. I specialized, I focused my education on greenhouses, greenhouse management operations. Did a bunch of projects there that were, I learned a lot of specifics. And yeah, and then my work experience.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think that's really cool. We're going to take a quick break. My guest is Dave Brault, and he's the owner of Lake to Lake Produce.
Yep.
Thank you. We'll be right back. And we're back. I'm Nanette Nocon, and my guest is Dave Brault, and he's the owner of Lake to Lake Produce, and we're talking about hydroponic farming and very exciting stuff. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So it's since 10th grade you've been involved and interested.
Yeah.
In farm. That's great. And then
Yeah.
having the little plot of land or farm, little plot of vegetables.
Yeah, that's when I
that
was a
you
little
planted.
kid, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I mean,
That's
all
cool
those
to see.
experiences come together.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? So now I want to know, they say that people who are passionate about what they do feel like they've never worked a day in their lives. I know you're just getting started in your business. Would you characterize your business in that way? Or is it like, man, it's a lot of work?
It's work.
Uh-huh.
Not all the time, but some of the things I've had to do, some of the situations can only be described as work. It was tough sometimes, but it's different. It's different than working for someone else. It's much different. Sometimes it's hard, but all the time I'm really happy. This has been something I've been working towards for a long time. So yeah, so it's different. Even if it's tough, I don't look at my watch thinking, how much longer do I have to be here? It's, how much more can I get done today? So I'm still very motivated to do it, and I enjoy doing it, even though sometimes some of the things I have to deal with are less than fun.
Sure, I understand that. Yeah, it's really amazing about the question that we ask ourselves, So you're asking the question, how much more can I do?
Yeah.
As opposed to what time do I get done? you know?
Right, yeah, it really changes for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're in control. So how did you raise the seed money? Did you go out there and get loans? Do you have investors?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're at an age of crowdfunding was a possibility.
Right.
Is that how did you get the capital to do all this?
So when I was looking to buy the structures, planning out the greenhouses I was going to put up, I looked at what financing the companies offered also, not just what, the structures are pretty equivalent from manufacturer to manufacturer.
Okay.
So the financing was a more influential piece. So I did go to bank, I went and researched traditional bank loans. I also went to the USDA, the Farm Service Agency, they have really good programs for beginning farmers. But in the end, I got really good financing for the structures, and then it made the most sense to take investment from my family, and that's how I started this business.
That seems to be a common theme for a lot of business owners, that the family believe in them, and
Yep.
because you have to start somewhere,
Right.
and some people have to help you, and it's like they know a successful, person who wants to be successful,
Right.
and want to help them out.
Yeah, they're very supportive.
Yeah, that's great. That's terrific. So when in terms of the cash flow for the business,
Mm-hmm.
I know you've just started in 2015, but are you finding that the cash flow, because there's always a crop that you are harvesting, that it's pretty consistent, or do you find oh gee, this crop didn't do so well, or how?
Yeah, that's always a possibility. There are issues. Things don't always go right. It's farming. There's still risk involved.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I try to control as many aspects of growth as I can, it is still risky, and things do happen, and crops get lost. So sometimes, and also crops slow down as the days get shorter and the temperatures go down. Even with adding heat, the shorter daylight, because we don't put lights in the greenhouse currently,
Okay.
that slows crops down significantly.
I see.
So yeah, during the winter and early spring,
Mm-hmm.
that can be a tough time when you have to, especially for starting new crops that you won't get any revenue from for several weeks or several months maybe, but you still have to make the investment. You have to pay to get it started.
Got it. Okay.
So it can sometimes cash flow can be an issue. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Do you use technology to track your, I don't want to say inventory, but your produce, your crops, I guess, because there's different cycles of how they harvest, right? I mean, that's probably something that...
Yeah, for record keeping, it makes it a lot simpler.
Uh-huh.
The big advantage for technology in my greenhouses is that I can automate a lot of all of the heating and cooling, the fans,
okay.
the irrigation. So
Okay.
all of that is done automatically, which is a huge help. It makes me more productive and efficient and produces a better crop because once it's programmed correctly, it'll take care of it for me.
Oh, that's great. Now, is your property positioned so you could have a lot more greenhouses?
Yeah, we could expand. We've got several acres in the back, so we could add more. I'm also adding quite a big field for field crops for organic vegetables outside. So I'm
Okay.
dedicating some of the space outside to that.
Okay.
But yeah, we do have room to expand
I see.
for more greenhouses in the future.
Okay, so you're doing some raising some crops that are outside of the hydroponic
Yep.
as well. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I love the pictures that you'd sent me, all the different, they look so nice.
Yeah.
They look so good to eat, you know what I mean? So, what is, in terms of revenue do you measure revenue by square footage of the farm? Help me understand that. 'Cause I
Yeah,
have
so when you're making projections, yeah, square feet is one of the main things. So for a crop like tomatoes that's in there for a long time, you know the square footage, you know how many square feet each plant needs, so you know how many plants you can put in there, and then you know what your expected harvest or what your expected yield is over the life of the crop, and then you add in your price, and that's how you can project your revenue. For other crops that happen quicker, like a lettuce, then you add in how many crops you can get in a year. So if it's in the greenhouse for 6 weeks, then every 6 weeks I'm starting a new crop cycle. So if it's a 4-week crop, you get more. If it's an 8-week crop, you get fewer. So it's how many plants you can get in and then how many cycles you can get in for crops like that.
I see. So it's probably a fine balance between demand and the cycle of the crops.
Yeah.
Or is there a vegetable
Yeah.
that many people really want or eat a lot of? I heard bananas, but you don't grow bananas.
No, I don't
Hard
grow
to do that
bananas.
here. But I mean, what's the vegetable or that people consume a lot of?
I've had really good success with my cherry tomatoes.
Okay.
That's become a major crop for me, and I'm proud to bring them. I think they're awesome. I think they taste awesome, and my customers, this is coming from them and repeat customers. So they eat a lot of them. It's really, you can just eat them. You can just snack on them.
Sure.
You put them in salads. You can cook them if you want to. So it's a pretty versatile ingredient. So that's really popular. In general, people really like dark leafy greens. Kale has been really popular for the last few years. A lot of people are juicing a lot now. I've spoken to a few people who have had great results in terms of their life with juicing. So they put a lot of the nutrient-rich superfoods and
Yeah,
dark
kale is one of those
Absolutely,
superfoods,
yeah. Kale,
right?
spinach, chard, a
Yes.
bunch of them. So those are some of the things that I'll be adding outside.
Okay.
They're not necessarily, you could grow them hydroponically, but you can also, obviously they grow outside.
Sure.
So I'll be adding a bunch of those for next year.
I see. Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, do you have other people that help you, or you're it?
Mostly it's me. Mostly it's me. I had a lot of people help me when I was getting started,
Sure.
with construction. I mentioned my grandpa already, but other family and friends.
Yes.
Hired a few professionals,
Okay.
for electrical stuff and things like that.
Sure.
My girlfriend Nikki helps me out. She works full time, but she also is very helpful and is passionate about it. So
That's great. That's terrific. It's wonderful that you lined up the things that you wanted to study and experience. Did you work for another at an employer before you decided to be in business for yourself?
Yep, yeah.
Oh, tell me about that. What was your background there?
So I was the head grower at a large greenhouse west of Rochester, and I spent a few years there. I think it's really important for people to get experience doing what they want to do before they start their own thing. Even though I worked at that greenhouse and I worked at several other farms before that and learned a lot, I still learned things starting my own.
Sure.
So despite all the experience that I had, there's still a lot to learn. So I think it's really important to do that and gain experience, practical. In school you can learn a lot and you can do a lot of, you can get a lot there, but the real world, real business teaches you quite a,
So
you learn
this-
faster. You learn, yeah.
And the cycle of it too, because if you're at school, you could stop at what you learned there. But
Yeah.
the ramifications can be,
Right,
the
right.
loop can be quite big.
If you don't
yeah.
make money with your school experiment, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
the consequences are much more real.
Right,
after.
and that's actually sage advice. You're absolutely right for people to jump right into the business without
Yeah.
having some sort of experience.
No matter what business, I've talked to people, I say, no matter what business you're getting into, get some experience first.
Mm-hmm. Now, how critical is the weather? Do you keep an eye on what the weather is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you kind of
Yeah.
see how relevant
Yeah,
is
I
that?
mean, not as much as some farmers. Like, you have to be, if you're harvesting outdoor crops, grain, or you're planting seed, you got to be really mindful of when it's going to rain, or how cold it's going to be, or what the soil temperature is. So I don't have to pay quite as much attention to that, the fine details of it. But yeah, I'm still aware because I need to, like I said, especially seasonally, it changes and it does impact the greenhouse environment.
I see. So some attention, but then it's a little bit more protected in the
Yeah,
greenhouse.
yeah, definitely.
Actually, I was going to ask, so the structure of the greenhouse, how much maintenance is there? I mean, do you worry about the way that, do you have to change it every so often?
Yeah, so the plastic I use, exposure to UV kind of yellows it and can make it brittle, so it won't transmit quite as much light and it could tear. So they're rated for 4 years of use.
Okay.
So every 4 years those get replaced. But otherwise, you kind of make sure that plastic could tear, so you got to check and make sure that it hasn't, or repair it if it has. But day to day, there's not a ton of maintenance on the structure.
Now, when you wake up as a business owner, what's the question that you ask yourself when you wake up? What's the first thought, or is it all over it and has so many? But I just wonder if there's a dominant question that you ask yourself as a business owner.
So usually it's, what am I harvesting? How much do I have here, and where am I going to take it? So if I'm waking up for a specific order, then I wake up for that, with that thought, and I'm getting ready to harvest that crop. But in general, it's how's my production coming? How much do I have? How much am I going to bring to market this week? How are the crops doing?
Right. And do you find that it's more reliable to have the distributors as opposed to the individual customers at the farmers market? I wonder, because you do half there and half farmers market, right? How is the breakdown of that? It's like, is the revenue a little bit lower with the distributor, right? Because everybody has.
Yeah.
But help me kind of balance.
The price
that.
is lower, but you can drop off more at once. So if I just go and make a delivery, I can drop off quite a bit of produce at once, and the price is a little bit lower, but I move more volume.
Got it.
Whereas at the market, every sale, every interaction is much smaller. The price is a little bit better, but I have to repeat that action many, many times throughout the whole day in order to, either meet the same volume or just sell everything that I have.
And there's a lot of different buying decisions from a lot of different people.
Right,
so
right.
There's a trade-off between.
But the market there are people who are very loyal to the market. Even, recently it's been pretty cold. There have been some really chilly mornings, but people come out early. It starts at 7 officially, but people are shopping by 6:15 in the morning on a Saturday.
Wow.
So they're very loyal, and so that tends to be pretty reliable also.
So can we find you at the Rochester Public Market?
Not the Rochester Public Market. I'm at the Syracuse Public Market.
Got it. Okay.
Which has been great.
Yes.
Next year I plan to add more markets to
Okay.
connect with the Rochester area,
Okay.
and also just some more around me in the
Yes.
Finger Lakes and probably in Geneva.
That's great. Well, best wishes to you. More power. I think it's wonderful that you got into the business that you did, and I think it's very timely. Like I said, there should be more locally grown stuff instead of having nothing wrong with California, but
No, the trend is good. It's towards local produce, which is great for everyone involved.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it, Dave. Lots of things that I learned today, and I think our viewers did too.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for watching us today. My name is Nanette Nocon. My guest is Dave Brault from Lake to Lake Produce. Thank you, and until next time.